The Big Topic storyline is about Travis Scott and the Astroworld show. This festival was a tragic event, and I'm not taking anything away from that fact. I just want to prove alternative perspectives from what the social media norm is. Now, many are saying that the deaths were a satanic Illuminati ritual of some sort. But just because he may believe in that stuff doesn't make his beliefs true any more than does it for any religion trying to prove on one another. Meaning trying to use the opposite beliefs to reinforce what you believe in as being true. Just like opposites only show direction of understanding, rather than say left is the only way when there's a right way too. And I don't mean just saying that right is right. And up, above, isn't good just because there's a down below. A negative isn't always necessarily wrong, but a con supports a pro to know what is what. Roses are red and violets are blue, but that doesn't necessarily make one flower better than the other than having a biased preference that you support. Death reinforces life's value, so opposition is a must to have something to work from and then compete against. But one's religious belief doesn't prove another to be true outside both their trajectories. Outside their closed-off spectrum, reality is still there. So those using the black magic talk, which has been around before established religion anyways, are on faulty ground of fear-driven false narratives. Sorry, but your faith isn't real now just because the negative reinforces it as a positive for you. Fear is also false evidences appearing real. Controversy sells and bad news will always do better than good news. If Travis Scott did a sacrificial ritual to obtain more success, then what about all the Christian artists or pastors that are doing well? Justin Bieber and Kanye West are more famous for using the Christian platforms. What about known satanic artists like Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie, and many more who haven't had this issue on this type of stuff with this event? Yeah, they've had people hurt and injured and people go to hospitals from mosh pits and whatnot, but there hasn't been this type of talk about a ritual sacrifice because there was deaths. I've been to crazy concerts, way more intense than a Travis Scott one, and people do get hurt. But people should know this, and they should know Travis Scott's concerts are rowdy in the past. But yes, of course, there should have been more precautions in place. The inverted cross stage, and where the whole setup is no different than other concerts where no one just dies, A lot of these satanic artists, they come out and let it be known, and you can see it more clearly. This was a little bit more subliminal, and he's into that type of stuff. That doesn't mean he wanted people to die, but then again, I'm not positive. And even if he did want people to die, it doesn't prove of religion to be true now, just by using that fear thing. Religious people do crazy stuff as it is in the past, Just look at history. And he was already big if you really think about it. I mean, he had his own deal with McDonald's to have his own meal on the menu. And he was part of the Fortnite, the biggest video game around. I mean, he really didn't have to do much to get bigger. People just want connections to feel they aren't duped and being gullible. They want the upper hand on things. We all want justification for a cause and effect. Keep in mind, though, that Travis is paying for the funerals, the psychiatric help, and has at least 30 lawsuits. He can't really benefit from this at the moment anyways. He probably lost money due to the second night being canceled and perhaps owes money on contracts with other artists. I really don't know the legal and contract bindings, but he can only really succeed by popularity of being a bad boy image, some negative appeal that win over everyone's attention. I do believe in positive and negative energy, but his career could go backwards and cancel culture could perhaps not forgive his negligence. Just as 50 Cent was shot 9 times and that helped his career, just as Tupac was always in trouble, Travis could possibly progress to higher levels of fame, but ultimately it wasn't the deaths. It was publicity, the press, that invokes more attention to his name. Now, I don't think his apology was all so sincere as it should have been, but everyone deals differently. It took days for me to cry for a lost one because my mind just wasn't ready for it yet. Ready to accept things isn't always on the table for everyone at the same time. I'm not for Travis either. I just think people are exaggerating random madness to being planned homicide from the evil industry, which wouldn't need to do any of this anyways to gain more fame and money. Drake had an after party at Dave and Buster's, but then when they both heard the news of the tragic events that did occur, they ended up leaving the party. A lot of people were talking about this image that Travis Scott released before his show. You know, talking about dystopia being a negative, talking about suffering, but that could be about himself and the world as he sees it. And then he does the utopia for his new album, which is basically him saying that he wants to bring better things to the world. There's more to offer to make it something better. It's kind of like him saying, what's joy without pain? You know, you can't really truly know the beauty on the other side of suffering if you've never gone through it, to now enjoy the positive effect from using that negative that you went through. But the thing is, when performing, you aren't focused on the crowd as much because you don't want to mess up. And it's embarrassing to stop your flow of things if it's just to be seen as a typical mosh pit rowdy crowd. You know, later on you find out it was nothing. You know, as an artist, that people paid to come see your best, and you don't want to look like a chump who gives up so easily. So maybe he had an ego boost surge, or whatever you want to call it, that made him blind to the possible situation beyond the average concert, which, if he did listen, then obviously maybe this could have been prevented, and he should have. But what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't mean he purposely ignored it so then later on it could be used against him. He was just caught up in the moment, just like a lot of artists are when they are performing. But regardless, one's personal beliefs don't make something true even if it's acted upon and many believe in it too. Agreed upon opinions don't constitute that as a fact because it's believed to be. Sorry, it just doesn't. Kanye West was on Joel Osteen's set, and he was revealing supposedly these hidden truths, which aren't really hidden anymore if everybody assumes that it is something going on. Now, I don't deny any type of, imagery to manipulate the mind and stuff that they've been putting in things for so long. Like, when you go to watch a movie and they flash the popcorn and soda so that you want to go buy it. And they've been doing a lot of stuff even with MK Ultra and whatnot. But to manipulate the mind to get obedience versus a sacrificial risk of taking people's lives that can also put your own life at risk is completely different. There is no compare and contrast unless you force one to be there. And Joel is one of the richest people out there. He's a pastor and he's making profit off of Jesus. And people could be like, oh, well, he's not really a man of God, but many believe he is. So it doesn't really matter. The whole point is you actually make more money doing that, and Kanye is, a believer in Jesus and whatnot. So he actually is promoting that. And obviously it's easier to put together. It's almost like playing a game. It's almost like we don't even know if they're just playing the same game to keep people intertwined and keep the vicious cycle going over and over again. So how about that for being deceived? What about if that was the greatest deception? Perspective is a funny thing because it works both ways if you really think about it. Like, what if the greatest deception is that you think you're not deceived by thinking you have what's the positive, what's the good, and you're using the negative to reinforce that more, but really, what if you were deceived? What if the greatest deception is just not thinking you were deceived? Because you're so scared of it. So it's easy to point the finger and be like, you're deceived, but really you could be the one that's deceived. You know what I'm saying?